The quiet, the kind of stillness only an old house can hold, the way floorboards settle after midnight, the way wind hums against aged windows. I called it peaceful, until I learned what real silence hides. My name is Emily. I was 28, single, lived alone in my grandparents' house after they passed. A two-story Victorian nestled at the edge of a sleepy town. The attic was always strange, not haunted, just old, creaky, dusty. I rarely went up there, only when I needed to pull down winter coats or holiday boxes, but lately, something felt different. It started with missing food, small things, a slice of bread here, a leftover container gone. At first I blamed myself. Did I forget I ate that? Did I toss it by accident? But then came the noises, at night when the world outside was still. I heard faint shifts above my bedroom ceiling, soft thuds, sometimes a light scrape. Almost like someone moving very carefully. Raccoons, squirrels. I wanted to believe that. I convinced myself it was nothing, just my anxious mind. Everyone hears bumps in old houses, right? But deep down, something whispered that this wasn't normal. The attic. I told myself I didn't need to go up there, but once you hear something, even once, you start noticing everything, every sound, every shadow. Every shift of air that feels just a little off. It was early October when I finally gave in. The cold snap came early that year, the kind that bites through windows no matter how tightly you pull the curtains. I needed my heavy blankets stored in a plastic tub. Up there, I climbed the narrow staircase to the attic. Each creak of the steps felt sharper than usual. The wooden door at the top groaned as I pushed it open. The smell greeted me first, old dust, wood rot, and something else, something faint, organic, not quite mold, not quite death, but unsettling in a way I couldn't name. I stood still, my flashlight beam cutting thin slices through the dusty air. Everything looked as it should, cluttered, forgotten. Boxes stacked in uneven towers, old furniture draped with sheets that looked like pale ghosts in the dim light. I whispered aloud, "Nothing up here, just an old house." I retrieved the blankets quickly, not daring to linger, but as I turned to descend, my light caught something small on the floorboards, a single, faint footprint in the dust, fresh. Barefoot, the breath caught in my throat. I knelt closer. It wasn't mine, it was too small, and too clean. No disturbed dust trail leading in or out, just one perfect print, as if someone had stood there, watched me, then disappeared. I scanned the room again, my pulse tapping against my ribs. Nothing, no movement, no sound, only the silence. And the silence now felt heavier. I hurried down, locking the attic door behind me. But look, they don't stop what's already inside. The brain does something cruel when it's afraid. It whispers lies that feel like comfort. It's probably my imagination. Maybe I left that footprint last winter. It's just an old house settling. Lies, necessary lies, because acknowledging the alternative, that someone might be living above you, would shatter your sense of safety, and once safety cracks, sleep becomes a fragile, dangerous thing. That night I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening, counting every faint creak, every shift of the wooden bones above me. Was it the house, or was it him? Sleep became complicated. You don't fall asleep easily when you're listening for things you're not supposed to hear. Every creak overhead felt deliberate now, not random, not the old house shifting. I started leaving the TV on, soft background noise. Just enough to drown out the imagined or real sounds above, but silence has a way of creeping back in, even through the static. After a week of restless nights, my friend Sarah came by. "You're pale, Em," she said gently. Her eyes scanned the dark circles under mine. "You look scared." I shrugged it off, old house, probably animals, but even as I said it, my voice shook. Sarah leaned in. "You should install a camera." I blinked. "Upstairs in the attic." She nodded. "Just a small one, motion activated, cheap ones online, just for peace of mind." I resisted at first. It felt intrusive, like admitting the thing I was afraid of might actually exist. But that night, as the house whispered above me again, I ordered a camera, small, wireless, infrared. 2 days later it arrived. I held the tiny box in my hands, heart racing. If I set this up, I'll have to face what it might record. But I couldn't sleep like this anymore. Installing the camera. Late afternoon, while sunlight still cut through the dusty attic windows, I climbed back up. Each step felt heavier. The attic door's groan now sounded almost annoyed, as if something behind it disliked being disturbed. I swept the flashlight again. Everything still looked the same. The single footprint was mostly faded now. I found a discreet corner near the old dresser. The camera's small green light blinked to life as I mounted it. Motion activated, night vision, 24/7 cloud storage, as I descended, locking the attic once more. I exhaled longer than I had in days. Now, if there's anything up there, I'll know. First night with the camera. That night, sleep came a little easier, for the first few hours, until... Ping, the notification buzzed on my phone at 2:17 a.m. Motion detected attic camera. I froze. The cold weight of fear pressed into my chest. For several seconds I stared at the alert, unable to move. Finally, with a trembling thumb, I tapped to open the live feed. Black and white night vision filled the screen. The attic looked still. Empty just as I left it, but then... At the far corner of the frame, a subtle shift, not fast, not obvious, a shadow, long, thin, almost like an arm sliding out of view. I blinked hard, rewinding the clip. The shadow appeared again. Small movement, deliberate, conscious. Someone was up there, watching the camera, avoiding it. Psychological layering. When you fear something unknown, your mind races. It fills in blanks, it imagines. But this was no longer imagined. This was real. The question shifted from, is someone there, to, how long has he been there? What does he want? I locked every window, double-checked every door, slept with a kitchen knife under my pillow. But locks, they're just symbols of safety. And symbols don't stop shadows. I didn't sleep at all that night. The camera footage played in my head like a loop I couldn't escape. The shadowed arm, the careful movement. The knowledge that someone had been up there, inches above me as I slept. By morning, my fear had calcified into something heavier, something colder. I sat in my living room, staring at the attic door at the end of the hallway. Do I call the police? That was the obvious answer, but I hesitated. What if they searched and found nothing? What if they said I was imagining things? What if he was smart enough to hide? And worse, what if my call made him angry? My mind spun in tight, suffocating circles. Instead, I made coffee, not because I wanted it, but because I needed something normal, that evening. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the house changed. Shadows grew longer. The air felt stiller and my skin prickled. I checked the attic camera feed constantly. Nothing, empty, dead air, but I could feel him up there. I could feel his presence like pressure in my chest. At 11:43 p.m., another ping lit up my phone. Motion detected. I tapped the screen instantly. There he was, for the first time clearly. A man, thin, pale, wearing a loose, oversized hoodie, his face partially obscured by the shadow of the low ceiling beams. He crouched, angled away from the camera, but I could see his head turn slightly, listening for me. My throat tightened. He wasn't fumbling. He wasn't panicking. He was calm. Like he'd done this before, like this was home for him. The decision. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my flashlight, my phone, and the small kitchen knife I'd kept by my bedside. My hands trembled, but my legs carried me forward anyway. Every step toward that attic door felt heavier than the last. At the base of the staircase, I paused. The house was silent. Even the wind outside had stilled, as if nature itself was holding its breath. I slowly turned the attic doorknob. It was unlocked. My stomach flipped. I never left it unlocked. The hinges groaned as the door cracked open. A wave of musty, cold air rushed down to meet me. I stepped onto the first creaky step, lifting my flashlight. The beam cut across old furniture, dusty boxes, but then froze as it landed on movement. He was there. The confrontation. Crouched behind an old wardrobe, his pale face barely visible in the beam's edge. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The silence between us throbbed like a heartbeat. Then, he spoke, barely above a whisper. Please don't call them. His voice was thin, desperate, but not angry. I swallowed hard. Who are you? He didn't answer right away. I didn't mean to scare you. I needed a place. That's all. I stared, frozen. How long have you been here? His eyes darted toward the camera, still blinking softly. Since February, 6 months, 6 long months, living above me, eating my food, watching me sleep. My breath trembled. Why my house? I asked. He looked down, voice cracking. You left the window unlocked once, in the back, and it was warm, safe, better than the shelters. I gripped the knife tighter, unsure what to do. He made no move toward me. No aggression, just quiet desperation. I'll leave right now, I swear. You'll never see me again. The twist of fear. Part of me wanted to believe him, to let him go, to end this quietly, but another part, the deeper, colder part, wondered how many nights he stood directly above my bedroom. Listening, breathing, waiting. Was he harmless, or had he simply been patient? Had he watched me in the shower, listened to my phone calls, stolen more than just food? The horrifying truth was, I would never fully know. And not knowing. That was worse than any answer. He stayed frozen, kneeling, head down, breath shallow. I could hear it, the shaky inhale, the tight exhale, like he was afraid of me. Or afraid of what came next. I didn't mean harm, he whispered again. I only watched you sleep when I felt alone. That's all, those words. Watched you sleep. They sliced something open inside me. The faint thuds I heard at night, the odd dreams of being observed. The chills down my spine at 2 a.m. They weren't dreams. They were memories I hadn't wanted to face. Why didn't you leave? I asked, voice dry. He finally raised his head fully into my flashlight's beam. His face, thin, hollow-cheeked, almost gaunt, but his eyes. His eyes were wide, almost childlike. You were safe. You didn't lock me out. You left food sometimes. I recoiled. I never left you food. He shook his head slightly. You did. You would leave leftovers in the fridge. You always had enough. I only took a little. My stomach turned. I hadn't been feeding him. I had been feeding myself, unknowingly sharing my home with him. He studied my face as if trying to explain. I stayed because you made the house feel warm. Layers of his mind. This wasn't random. It wasn't opportunistic. This man. He had built a fantasy inside my home. A private world where he was invisible but not alone. Where he could exist quietly, sharing my life from a distance. A delusion of belonging. I only came down when you left, he continued softly. You have the green coat. You always wear it when you go out. That's when I would eat clean. Return before you came back. The realization made my throat dry. I tried to calculate. How many times had I left for errands, unaware he was moving freely beneath my roof? The shifting fear. In that moment I felt something strange, not just fear, not anger, but a sickening sense of violation. My home wasn't mine anymore, my privacy shredded, my routines observed, my life infiltrated. He hadn't broken bones or spilled blood. He had taken something far more intimate, my unawareness, and that realization broke something in me, the turning point. My grip tightened around the knife, but I could feel my hands shaking. You have to leave, I whispered. I will, I promise. His voice was desperate again. But don't call them, please. I didn't answer. I backed toward the stairs, keeping the light on him. He didn't move. I'll be gone by morning, he said softly. If I find you here tomorrow, I won't hesitate, I replied. He nodded, lowering his gaze again. I descended, locking the attic door behind me, this time bolting it, and for hours I sat in my living room, silent. Knife still in hand, listening. Every sound above made me twitch, but he never came down, the waiting. Morning came slowly. Gray light filtered through thin curtains. I hadn't slept a moment. At dawn, I called the police, not out of revenge, but because I needed the truth. I needed to know if he was truly gone. The police arrived just after sunrise. 2 officers, polite, professional, but I could see it in their eyes, the silent judgment most victims feel. You live alone, yes. And you're sure someone's been staying up there? I have video, I whispered. I handed them my phone, showing the clip, the shadow, the thin figure, the whispered voice from the attic. Their expressions shifted. Professional interest now, not dismissal. Officer Daniels nodded. We'll check it out, entering the attic. They unlocked the door I had bolted only hours earlier. The wooden stairs groaned under their weight. I stood below, heart pounding, listening to their footsteps above me. No raised voices, no struggle, only silence, long, dragging silence. Minutes passed before Daniels called down. Miss, could you come up here, please? My legs trembled as I climbed. The attic was different now, exposed. Not just dusty boxes and forgotten furniture, but evidence, the makeshift living space. In one corner, carefully hidden behind stacked crates, was a nest. A thin mattress laid over old blankets, crushed snack wrappers. Half-empty water bottles, my books missing from my own shelves, a lantern, a battery-powered radio, and next to it all, something far more disturbing, dozens of small notebooks, handwritten, stacked neatly in uneven piles. Officer Daniels lifted one with gloved hands. He kept journals, he said softly. The journals. I flipped one open, unable to resist. Neat handwriting filled every page. April 6, she left for groceries at 10:12 a.m. Wore the green jacket, same pattern as last week. I stayed quiet, waited under the beams. April 7, she sang in the shower again, the same song. She sounds lonely. Her cat stares at the ceiling when I move, need to stay quieter. April 10, windy tonight. The creaks make her nervous. I feel bad for frightening her, but I like being near someone again. Page after page, every routine, every habit, every detail of my life. Meticulously recorded. My privacy hadn't just been invaded, it had been cataloged, obsessed over, memorized. I felt sick, the deeper layer of his mind. This wasn't a man surviving, this was ritual, fantasy, an invisible relationship he believed we shared. She feels like family, one entry read. If I don't make noise, I can stay longer. She doesn't suspect anything. I'm careful. I love our silence together. I shivered. There was no together. There never was. But for him, for 6 months, we had been living in parallel, two separate lives, only one aware of the other. The question of intent. Officer Daniels cleared his throat. Miss, we believe he's a transient named Brian Keller. History of mental illness, previously institutionalized. Is he dangerous? I whispered. The officer paused. He hasn't harmed you physically, but this kind of fixation, it escalates, eventually. The word hung in the air, eventually. What's worse than violence? Sometimes it's not the physical harm that breaks you. It's knowing how close harm sat, how long it stared, how it memorized you while you slept, how you never knew. I looked around the attic. At my home within my home, the secret life I didn't know existed, and I realized. No locked door would ever feel secure again. They found him that same evening, not far from the house. Hiding behind an old storage shed 2 streets over, crouched, shivering. He didn't resist, he didn't run. When the officers brought him in, he looked small, smaller than I expected, not monstrous, not menacing, almost fragile. But sometimes monsters don't wear their skin on the outside. The interview room. They allowed me to watch from behind the glass. I didn't know why I said yes. Maybe I wanted answers. Maybe I wanted to see who I'd unknowingly shared my life with for 6 months. He sat at the metal table, hands cuffed gently in front of him. His eyes darted around the sterile room like a child in trouble. The detective began softly. Brian, we know you stayed in that attic. He nodded, swallowing hard. Can you tell us why? This wasn't just obsession, it was delusion. A desperate man stitching himself into someone else's routine. Finding comfort in a life that wasn't his, not malicious, but deeply broken, and in some ways. That was even more terrifying. Because he didn't see himself as dangerous, he saw himself as present. They took him away that night. No struggle, no shouting, just quiet compliance like everything else he had done. As the cruiser's red and blue lights disappeared into the distance. The house felt wrong, not empty, but wrong. Every creak of the floor, every distant drip from the faucet, every faint breath of wind tapping against the window. All of it felt heavier now. As though the house itself was still watching me. People assume once the threat is gone, the fear leaves too. But fear lingers, it settles into your bones. It changes how you exist in a space you once called safe. I changed the locks. I installed more cameras, motion sensors, security lights. I sealed the attic window permanently, but no amount of bolts or beams could lock away what had already seeped into my skin. My routines became rituals of paranoia. Check every closet before bed, slide a chair under the doorknob at night, leave the TV on for background noise, soft enough to mask silence but not loud enough to cover real sounds. Friends visited often. Sarah even stayed over the first few nights. You're safe now, she whispered, but her words bounced hollow inside my chest. Safety isn't something you rebuild overnight, especially not after learning how thin its walls truly are. Neighbors whispered, did you hear? She had a man living in her attic. How didn't she know? As if my failure to notice was somehow my fault, as if I invited it, as if I should have sensed every breath above me in the dead of night. Their glances carried silent accusations. The victim always carries a shadow afterward. At my therapist's office, I tried to untangle the knots left behind. You weren't foolish, she said. You were simply unaware. That's not a crime. But the guilt still gnawed, not guilt for his actions, but guilt for not feeling him sooner. I should have known, I whispered. 6 months, 6 months, he was right there. My therapist leaned forward, her voice calm. That's the true violation, Emily. He made you question your own senses, your own reality. That's why it lingers, and it did. Even now, even as I tell you this story, some nights are worse than others, when the wind hits the siding just right. When old pipes settle in the walls, when shadows shift unexpectedly across my bedroom ceiling, that's when I feel him again, not physically, but psychologically. That thin presence, breathing, waiting, not because he's returned, but because my mind replays the possibility. And it's not his face that haunts me, it's the idea. The idea that someone can be so close, so silent, so invisible, and you never know until it's too late. Time passed. Months, then a year. The house grew quieter again, but not peaceful, never peaceful. The kind of quiet that presses against your skin. the kind that makes you listen harder even when there's nothing there. Because after something like that, silence no longer means safety, it means unknown. I moved my bedroom downstairs. I stopped using the upstairs entirely. The attic door stayed bolted, always. Sometimes I thought about selling the house, starting over somewhere new, but the truth was, the house wasn't haunted, I was. The memories lived inside me now, not the walls. Every time I closed my eyes at night, I felt it, the faint pressure above me. The awareness of someone else breathing nearby, even when I knew the attic was empty, even when the cameras stayed silent. Fear doesn't always need evidence to exist. I stopped trusting certain things, locks, doors, routines. I questioned every habit, every forgotten detail. Did I lock that window? Did I turn the camera on? Did I hear something or imagine it? The world becomes fragile after you learn how thin your reality can be. I became hyper-aware of others, strangers who stood too close in grocery stores, men who lingered in parking lots, random footsteps behind me on sidewalks. No one felt harmless anymore, because he had seemed harmless too. Until I learned better, my therapist called it hypervigilance, a survival response, one that never fully shuts off once it's triggered. I'd hear her say, "You're safe now, Emily." But the problem is, once you realize how easily safety can be breached, you can never fully trust it again. The police said he had no violent record, no history of assault. They called me lucky. It could have been much worse. But those words always bothered me, because worse isn't always about physical harm. Sometimes it's about knowing that someone lived in your world, breathing your air, watching your life, tracking your every move. And you never knew. You lived in parallel with a shadow for 6 months and you never saw it. People ask me now, how did you not know? I never have a good answer, because the truth is, most of us don't look up. We trust the walls around us. We trust that locked doors mean safety, but shadows don't need doors, they only need silence. And the scariest thing isn't that someone broke into my home, it's that he never had to, he simply waited for me to forget. Some scars never fully close, they become part of you, quiet reminders, soft enough to ignore during the day, but louder in the stillness of night. I live differently now, more careful, more cautious. Some would call it paranoia, I call it education, because I learned something most people are fortunate never to face. Safety isn't something you have, it's something you think you have, and once you see the gap between those two truths, you never unsee it. I still catch myself glancing at vents, listening for sounds that aren't there, feeling the weight of spaces above me, behind me, around me. My mind replays old footage like an obsessive director, the journals, the quiet footsteps.